Welcome back, class. We are now on the third in our series on the reason handout, and today we want to talk about reason in us. I also want to remind you that there are more in-depth videos on my YouTube channel under my name, Kelly Fitzsimmons Burton. The series is called Retrieving Reason, and there's lots of videos there on this handout. I think this is the most important handout of your career. But you know what? I'll let you prove me wrong by bringing me a better handout. All right, let's talk about reason in us. Remember, we have reason in itself, the laws of thought, identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle. We use those reasons to form concepts, judgments, and arguments as a test for meaning, to interpret, and to construct. Okay, so that's a reminder. This is about rationality. How is reason a part of our being? How is reason part of being? I challenged one of my classes by saying there's no such thing as an irrational human. Okay, there's no such thing as an irrational human. Why? Because we're all rational beings. Look at this. Oh, one other thing. The way to remember this is reason is not fun. That's how I remembered it as a student. Not starts with the natural. N, natural. O, ontological. T, transcendental. Fun, fundamental. Not fun. Put it on a note card. Put it in your long-term memory. There is an exam question on this. What is reason in us? What is reason in us? Explain. Okay, reason is natural. This means it is not cultural or conventional. This is being challenged right now. Reason is a Western thing, or reason is a male thing. Is it really though? Let's think about that. If I were to go to another culture, let's say, I don't know, Chinese civilization in the year 550 before Common Era, is A there? Yes, they're doing philosophy there, and they're doing it just like we are. A is A no matter where you go. A thing is what it is. Unless you're post-Nietzschean philosophy in contemporary world who wants to challenge that. Go ahead and challenge that, but don't use it while you challenge it. So reason is not cultural. The laws of thought are not based on where you were born in the world, or what gender you are, or what race or economic status you have. It is not conventional. It's not made up by human beings. Nietzsche says it is. He's a guy who's going to challenge this, but why should we believe him? He doesn't prove that. He just says it. Prove it to me that reason, the laws of thought, is made up. Show me who makes it up. I'll tell you who writes it down. Aristotle. He wrote it down. But Aristotle learned from Plato, and Plato learned from Socrates, and Socrates is definitely using the laws of thought. And so we're all humans who are using words. So reason is not cultural or conventional. It is universal. This is good news for us. Reason, the laws of thought, is the same in all persons at all times. The laws of thought are universal. And we can go anywhere in the world. A is A. A thing is what it is. We may disagree about what the thing is. We may have the laws of thought, but reason from different assumptions based on reason in its use. But we have the same tools. And this is universal. And it's the same for humans in all of history. It's what allows for us to go back and study history. It allows for us to study other societies and communicate. We could learn languages because words represent concepts, and concepts are the first act of reason, the law of identity being applied, and that is universal. Concepts are universal. But perhaps you disagree. That's fine. Let me know, and we can discuss it. Okay, reason is ontological. Big word. It's a great word. It's a great concept. Ontos is being. And some philosophers say that Western philosophy begins with the twin concepts of logos and ontos. Logos is reason. Ontos is being. When you combine those two ideas together, you get philosophy. You start reasoning about what exists. It's beautiful. So reason is ontological, means reason applies to being as well as to thinking. So these are the laws of thought, but they're also the laws of being, and being is what exists. Reason is the laws of existence, which is great news for us because that means we can grasp what is. If you get rid of reason as ontological, then you get rid of the ability to grasp any natures of things, and we can't know the world. And that's what happens in the modern period and the postmodern period in philosophy. They get rid of this idea of reason is ontological. For no good reason. They just jettison that idea, trying out logical options, which turn out to be illogical and leads to a lot of the problems that we have today. But if we think about it, reason applies to being as well as to thought. There are no square circles. Think about it. A square is a plane geometrical figure that has 4 right angles. I can't make a square. And a circle is a plane geometrical figure where all points on the radius are equidistant from the center. Each of these has a nature, and the natures are different. A is not non-A. Square is not non-square, circle. And there's no way to put those together. It's not a squircle. It's not a square in a circle. It's not a square in a circle in a time warp or a wormhole. That's not a square circle. There are no square circles. It's impossible. And reason tells us so. And this is hopeful. Another one, no uncaused events. Events are things that are caused by nature. There are no uncaused things that are caused. That's a contradiction. Reason tells us so. There is no being from non-being. We'll talk about that later, but that is an application of reason as ontological. If you hold on to that reason applies to being, then we could know some things about being. And it's exciting because then we can do philosophy. If you throw out reason as ontological, you kill philosophy. And that's where we are right now, historically. They've thrown out reason as ontological, I'm going to say, by the 1900s. 1900 Nietzsche dies. He's the guy that denies reason is ontological, and all of the major thinkers after him go that way. So the analytic philosophers, the continental philosophers, the pragmatists, and it leads to where we are today with critical theory. Reason is not ontological. I'm going to say, whoa, 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 back it up. Why? Why do we want to think that? And have you looked at all the implications, and are you willing to live with the implications of saying that? If you want more, watch my YouTube videos. I go off. I'm very passionate about reason, okay? And reason is ontological. I also wrote a book about it. It's right back here, this one, Retrieving Knowledge, where I try to argue that the problems we're seeing in philosophy today go back to before Socrates, and Socrates had a solution to those problems, but we forgot. And when Nietzsche comes back with the same objections that the first philosophers had, we have the same problems. Skepticism in the academy and in the world, we can't really know, and fideism in the religious realm. You just have to believe. So when we finish this handout, we're going to go into those views and see, how did we get there? It's because we didn't hold on to reason as ontological. Says me, and this next one. Reason is transcendental. So transcend, it rises above. Reason is the highest authority. It rises above other sources of authority. Right now in our culture, authority is being questioned at every level. And it's because reason's not being presented as the source of authority. So let's look at what this means. Reason is authoritative and self-attesting. Self-attesting means it cannot be questioned, but it makes questioning possible. There is no other self-attesting authority besides reason. Every other authority needs to be tested and attested to. So let's say the Bible. I have the Bible somewhere over here. If I say, well, the Bible says it, we still have to say, what does it mean, and do we know if it's true? That's using reason. What does it mean? Remember reason, the formative use, the concepts. And is it true? And how do you know it's true? You're asking me to give proof. So that's going back to reason and its use. We can't escape using reason. Let's say a police officer pulls you over and he says something, you've been speeding, and you say, no, I haven't been speeding. And you can say, prove it to me. You're asking for this person in authority to attest to the claim that they're making. Use reason to prove it. But reason itself can't prove reason. It's where we start. It's called a first principle or an axiom. It's self-attesting. It's self-evident. It cannot be questioned, but it makes questioning possible. Now, when I was a student, I wanted to question reason because I had this attitude that you're supposed to question everything, question authority. So I tried. I went home and I was like, question it. I'm going to question reason. I'm going to come up with an argument against reason. But then I realized if I use an argument, that's part of the formative use of reason. I'm using reason to argue against reason. I'm assuming the thing I'm trying to disprove. That's an error. So I saw I couldn't argue against reason, so I submitted to reason. And after that, life became really great. When I said, reason is my authority, then I was able to follow my reason, follow the guide, and follow the laws of thought, and get to some truth. And I hadn't been introduced to reason until college, and that's kind of a tragedy too. So I hope that you will really think about reason and grasp its depth. It's not going to be like, oh, I put this on a note card and I memorized it and that's good enough. No, you have to think about it. You have to really spend time thinking and seeing the implications. All right, the last piece is reason and its use is reason is fundamental. Fundamental means it's foundational, and it's fundamental to our personality. So it's basic to other aspects of human personality. Those other aspects include our emotions and our will. So let's go back and look at this. We have our will, which is the thing that helps us to act, and our will has emotion behind it, and emotion is the motivator for action, but behind our will and emotion are our thoughts. And this is where reason is. This is the level of reason. This is the level of desire. And this is the level of action. Now, we are living in an age of feeling, says one philosopher. I used to think he was wrong. I thought we were living in an age of action. All of our philosophy is action-oriented, pragmatism, activism, social change. But apparently it's driven by desire and feelings. I don't know. I argue it's driven by thoughts, reason, philosophy. So here's where philosophy is. This is where maybe psychology is. And here is where the practical stuff is. Getting stuff done. And we each have all of these in our personality, but there is an order where thoughts are first, emotions are second, will is third. And we need to keep that order right. Otherwise, we become disordered. Now, later we're going to talk about Socrates and how he talks about a disordered soul. A disordered soul is where we don't observe this order. We don't think it through. We let our emotions get the better of us, our appetites, what we desire, or we let our practical drives lead us. So going back to the handout, reason is fundamental. It is basic, logically prior to other aspects of human personality. Now, notice its use, the use of reason, is the source of man's greatest good, our greatest good, humanity's greatest good, your greatest good. Why? Because when you use reason, then what do you get? If you use reason, then here's a caret sign. If then you find meaning. Do you need meaning? Are you a meaning-needing being? We are. Human beings need meaning. And when we have meaning, then we're happy. So let's draw happy. And not just happiness, but lasting happiness. We want it to go on, all right? So the handout's not just some philosophical flourish at the end. It's It's literal. If you use reason, then you find your greatest good, meaning, understanding. You get it. It makes sense. And all of life can be connected in a meaningful whole. And you can have more and more meaning, fuller and fuller life. But reason's denial, if we deny reason, is the source of our deepest misery. Why? Because the opposite happens. If we don't have reason, this is a negation sign, no reason, then no meaning, then no happiness, and no lasting happiness, not even temporary happiness. We have misery. So when life makes no sense, when we don't know why we're doing the things we are, when we don't know why we do the things we do, we become miserable. Meaninglessness. So we can talk about this at the beginning. If there's no meaning, we have, let me go down here. We have meaninglessness. Less and less meaning. When we use reason less and less, we have less and less meaning. And then things get boring. I'll give you an example. I took a math class once, geometry in high school, senior year, at like lunchtime. I could not stay awake in that class, mostly because I was behind and I didn't understand it. It became less and less meaningful as time went on because I couldn't understand it. The less work I did, the less I sought to understand, the less I did understand. So the class became boring to me. It was over my head, it was boring. But we can't stand boredom. So we have to do something. You know what I did? I went to sleep every single day. And guess what? I failed. And then I had to, I guess this was junior year, because I had to go to summer school after that. And I wasted a year of math, and I had to waste my summer too. And guess what? I felt guilt. I felt guilt because I wasted. So when we get bored, we tend to go into excess. Think of all the excesses of life people go into. Greed, lust, all these things. We fill our life with things that don't mean anything. The more we fill it, the more we need, and it doesn't fulfill. Then we waste. So waste produces guilt. We wasted our time, our effort, our life perhaps. So you can see where reason is very important for human life and flourishing. Reason is fundamental. It is basic to other aspects of human personality. Its use is the source of humans' greatest good, and its denial is the source of man's deepest misery. So think about just individuals. Individuals can get pretty miserable, but think about a whole culture that is given up on reason, where a lot of individuals, almost all of them, are in this condition of meaninglessness, boredom, and guilt. It's a kind of death. So we could talk about this in terms of soul death, death of the soul, or spiritual death. And then we could talk about cultural death. And that's maybe what we're seeing out there right now. So how can we fix it? We can fix it by using reason. We could fix it by seeking what is good for humans. And what is good for humans is meaning. And how do you get meaning? We use reason properly. So we want to encourage you to think deeply about reason, know this handout, know it for the rest of your life, and start applying it to things you see in culture round about you, okay? If you have any questions, any objections, any concerns, reach out to me and let me know. I want the good for you. I want you to be a reason user and a happy person. All right, thank you and take care. I'll see you in the next handout where we start talking about skepticism.